The success of our society proves that our system works, but maybe we forgot to teach our young folks that wealth is achieved by helping people to get what they want. So, if no one has yet taught you how the game is played in the big leagues, well, guess what? Now, it's your turn. Here's our rallying cry. There's a billionaire locked inside you. The key to freedom is information. The kind of information you find here on the MoneyMan Report. Now, here's today's host. Here's the MoneyMan. Here's Dan Frischberg.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our podcast and YouTube channel, which is Now It's Your Turn. Now, I'm Dan Frischberg.
I'm Alicia Frischberg.
And Alicia is the one who invented this radio program. This is the successor to the MoneyMan Report, which we did for 25 years. And it was all Alicia's idea.
Thank you, Daniel.
So this was what we want to talk about today, and why we're doing this together is because we want to talk about why do a few people make a lot of money. The American economy works great for some people, but almost everybody is getting left behind.
Yeah, remember that
and
time?
A lot of them are frustrated. Yeah.
Remember that time when Larry was in Cub Scout? He spent an overnight with parents. And he said, hey, you guys, I never realized how much I knew a lot of things until I heard those silly, discussions with the men around in the Cub Scout.
There was a campfire at the Cub Scouts, and I was in our tent. It was an overnight sleepover, and this was when he was 9. Now he's 23. So this is a while ago. And he went out there and he sat at the campfire with these dads, and the dads were talking about their investments and their stock market ideas and this. So go ahead.
And he was listening to them. And remember, he's been around us since his lifetime, since he's alive. So
in fact, we used to do the radio program from a studio in our house as he grew up. We did it in the afternoon from 4 to 6.
And sometimes he'll join up just listening to us with a headset. And he said, I could never realize that it's in the back of my head. Listening to those dads, those were really silly discussions about the stock market. I could not imagine that discussion.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of thinking about what you were telling me privately, which is why do some people, this whole idea of abstract thinking, of being able to see companies as a company. Explain that.
It's a very special reasons why I'm trying to help or sharing my ideas to particularly women, because women, for some reason, they were not trained by their parents to be investing in the stock market.
Actually, we were on this cruise and there was this girl telling us about how her father taught her brothers all about business. And they had her playing with dollhouses. They just didn't even think of her as a candidate.
Yeah, but for me, it was a different situation because my dad, I was the youngest of 4 girls. So he had no choice. So he had to pick which one he's going to train out of the 4 girls. And he picked me, lucky me. And so I was able to, at age 9 at least, run around with him, watching him handle crisis and doing business and all the things that a 9-year-old couldn't even imagine there was such thing.
Now, for a guy who grew up on the New York Stock Exchange, I always got a kick out of the story you told me when we first met about how you were a kid reading a book. Tell them about that.
Yes, we had no electricity. and we were taught by missionary nuns from Canada, and they had a lot of books. And my mother brought me to Sister Mary and said, can you please take care of my youngest little girl, because she asked way too many questions. I'm maxed out with her questions.
Which she
it's
still does, by the
redundancy. So Sister Mary said, I would gladly take her under my wing. And so she gave me a book that says there's a place in New York City that it's called Broad. It's on Broadway,
on the corner of Broad and
Broad and Wall Street. And it says that for a small amount of money, you can actually buy a company and don't have to work there. And if it's a perfect company that you have done research and everything, you could make money and be wealthy and don't have to work there. It means so at 9 years old said, that sounds too good to be true.
Now, interestingly, 16 years later in Houston, Texas, because she bravely, with no money, came to America to find this place where you could own companies and get rich. And when I met her, she was 25. And the thing that was so interesting about her at that time was she had this 3x5 index card in her pocket, and it had stock symbols. And so I thought this was fascinating. Anyway, we got to talking, but I don't want to go into that so much as the thinking about what is it about some people that makes them be able to have this system make them rich, and they understand the value. And because, this stock market's it started at nothing. It's been going up straight for 150 years. And yet you couldn't even figure out a formula for how to lose money on a deal like this. And yet most people do lose money.
Perennially lose money.
And they give up. They either do mediocre. Very few people actually do well. And so you were studying this, and you have an idea about what's going on in people's ability to do abstract thinking. And it starts with when the dinosaurs disappeared. There was 65 million years ago, there was a asteroid that hit the Earth, and it was like the opposite of global warming. It filled the Earth with dust, and it blocked the sun, and it got cold. And the dinosaurs didn't make it. They couldn't figure out what to do. They just died in place with nothing. But these little squirrels and lemurs and mammals, talk about this.
So most of us, we have all those animals has the faculties that they can feel, smell, and touch and all of that. But basically, they have no ability to think like what we do. Invent and think ahead. And that's a very special gift.
Be able to think of something that you didn't see or hear and invent new ways of doing things, right? And we're the only animal that has ever lived on this planet that's able to do that, right?
That's right.
But what comes natural is what came to the mammals, which is they could deal with it. They could survive the cold weather and find caves and go to someplace warm. They could figure out those kinds of things, but they still never figured out tools. They're still doing exactly the way they were doing 60 million years ago. And so you were inspired by the difference. Well, talk about the difference. What do humans have? You
can practice up actually to think and receive using all your faculties and thinking ahead of time, meaning 5 years down the road. I practiced it. You might not believe it, but I did. For example, just for the fun of it, why not have a mansion? And everybody says, are you crazy? You must be crazy. When everybody is having a mansion, and why not me? Just for the fun of it. So as a human being, you are able to receive things and think ahead of time. So, I picked up a little halfway, like small mansion compared to Robinson and everybody else. And so, imagining fresh from your brain, you go pass through the security guard and you can smell the roses, you can smell fresh cut grasses, you can use all your senses that those animal instincts has. But the difference between human being is you can think clearly and together put all those animal instincts in you and build something 5 years down the road, think something 2 years down, invent something. And
All right,
so
now we're talking about why people get left behind and can't figure out how to have these companies that have been going up for 150 years, and why aren't they making them rich? And your point was, when you were explaining it to me, your point was that they don't see it as a company. They only see what they see. They don't think and understand. So to you, you're looking at a company like Microsoft, and what you see is buildings and people going to work and all kinds of products and the things that they're doing. And the average person what they see is only what they see, which is it's a piece of paper. It's a stock. It's like a baseball card.
Well,
and they just want to trade it.
Think about Microsoft. How many years ago? 25 years ago? How much was it?
Right. The stock was at, 20 years ago, it was $50.
Yes.
And maybe 10 years before that, it was at $5. Now it's $350. Yeah, right. Exactly. And the thing is that if you used the kinds of leverage, if you used acquisition rights and you took instead of buying the stock for $350, you're able to buy the rights to that stock for a fraction of that cost. If you did that 5 years ago, you made now, if you own the acquisition rights to buy Microsoft stock 5 years ago, when it was like $1 a share for the acquisition rights, the stock was, I don't know, 100 or whatever. But if you did that, now the stock has grown and it made you 70 times your money, 7,000%. That means that long-term option on Microsoft that you bought for $1.50, if you bought $10,000 worth of those, you have $700,000 now worth of Microsoft stock.
You term it acquisition rights.
Yeah, they're long-term options. And the reason I use that word acquisition right is because when people hear the word option, in their mind, they think about these kids trading and trying to figure out what it's going to do in a month or 2 months. And they lose money all the time. It is very dangerous and risky. They're just guessing. They're gambling. But when I take, Bill Gates, think about this. Bill Gates, when he was the richest guy in the world with $80 billion of net worth. Now, and his asset was Microsoft, right? But Microsoft was $250 billion company at that time. And Bill Gates only owned 1.5% of Microsoft. That was only worth $5 billion. So how do you figure he was worth 80 billion? Because what he was doing was he was buying acquisition. He was cashing in his shares. At one time, he owned almost all of it, right? He was half of it. He was cashing in his shares, but he was buying these long-term options, exactly the kind that he was offering his employees to work there. And those employees
are millionaires at 40s.
Yeah, they retire as millionaires because they're getting paid in stock, but they're also getting stock options. But they're not 1 month or 2 months, they're long-term stock options. And because they're not vested, They don't have
can't do
anything.
anything.
They're not tempted to try and trade. But the point is that the average person, you notice that the average person, when you talk to them about these things, they're not seeing a company or a business. They're seeing a piece of paper. And so the only thing they can think of to do with that piece of paper is to trade it and figure out what everybody else is going to do and try to get in and out. And is it going to go up this week or down this week? When we have a business, and let's say we had a hot dog stand on the beach, and we knew a guy in Miami that had a hot dog stand on the beach, and it was a great little business. But when there was a period of a whole couple of weeks where it rained all the time, there was nobody there. He didn't make any money with that hot dog stand. He didn't want to trade it and sell it and get stocked out like a person. That what he did was he knew how many people come to that beach every year, and he knew how many hot dogs he sells on that beach every year. He was committed to that business. So he had a bad weather, and there were not a few people, but he didn't think of it. It wasn't a piece of paper. It was a business to him that he was committed to.
Who does not go up and down every day.
That's right. But now what we've got this tremendous opportunity, because it's COVID this and COVID that, and all they hear in the news is COVID, and they're getting scared, and they're selling companies that make a fortune, that are great businesses, and they're selling the stock of these companies because they don't even understand that it's a business. They're a member of the herd, and they see the stock price going down. And that's what you were talking about. Their abstract thinking abilities don't work. They don't see. Well, they only know what they see, and what they see is a piece of paper.
And many of these companies have grown so much more valuable many times.
And they're going, but the thing is that a lot of them are growing now, and they're doing things that the world wants and needs. And COVID is not going to stop them from doing this. In fact, people are starting to travel again. They're starting to do stuff. But COVID didn't affect Microsoft. If you're staying home, you're using your computer. The thing about Microsoft, we're talking about that one company because it's a company. But what's it doing? All over the world, people are getting electricity. People who never even saw ice cream are finding out about how we live, and they're getting electricity.
And they are getting ice cream.
They're getting, yes, but right now they're thinking their kids are going to go to college. They're getting electricity. They're subscribing to Microsoft just like we do. And so now in America, there's 300 million people. 200 million of them are probably subscribed to Microsoft, but there's 1 billion people in India who aren't.
Who's going to get electricity
They're going
soon.
to get it, right? Europe.
That's our client.
That's right. Europe, in Europe, there's another 300 million people that are having this. But in Africa, people don't have computers, but they're getting them. And so what Microsoft has is it's guaranteed to just keep getting bigger and bigger and making more money and more money and more money. And it doesn't matter to us at all, right? If that stock goes down this month because people are worried about COVID, we just want to buy more of it.
That's what people always calling me when you talk on radio about, you're going to order a shoes while you are driving, and I have to tell you, pull up because you're going to get us killed. And so everybody says that makes me so, memorable.
She's talking about Amazon, and I was trying to buy a pair of sneakers, and Alicia said, "You're going to get us killed." Right? I could do it. I was in my phone, but I could have done it. But she said, "That's it. You can't do this. You're going to kill us." So I pulled over in a parking lot, and I bought those sneakers. And the next day, they're delivered.
And the bottom line is, those people in Africa would want to do that.
And they see it now. Some of them are getting Netflix. They have cell phones, and they're watching movies about how we live, and they're determined to do this too. So, of course, Amazon's going to keep growing and keep growing, and Microsoft is going to keep growing and keep growing. And we don't care about that there's a bad week this week because the weather was bad, or people are worried about a new virus or something. So what? That's not going to stop them. If they don't get a computer this week, they're going to get it next week. If they're worried about COVID, either they're going to all die or they're going to get electricity. Their kids are going to go to college, right? And so what we're doing is we're taking advantage of the people that are selling it because they're following the herd and worried about, yes, Microsoft, maybe it's going to make less money this month. Probably not, but maybe Amazon will make less money this month, or maybe the company that solves the
CrowdStrike.
yeah,
I know exactly what you're thinking.
there are companies that will make less money, just like that hot dog stand. Maybe people didn't come to Miami as much this month because they're worried about COVID, right? But this guy knows that's going to be gone. If they don't come this month, they'll come next month. People are not giving up on vacations. They want to take their kids. And the proof of that, by the way, is you and I took a cruise and we were let off in Orlando. 6 months ago, the Orlando airport was empty. We were let off a couple of weeks ago in Orlando, and it was so packed, right? How many? 500,000 people we had to wait for to just get up to where you weigh your bags, which normally there's 2 or 3 people.
So this discussion comes
in other words,
back.
they're back.
This discussion comes back. Why do people just stand there while other people are getting rich?
Because they're not using the abstract ability and they're thinking of it as a piece of paper rather than a company. Now, you told me that you see Alicia specializes, particularly she's interested in bringing this information to women.
You know, I never realized, Daniel, that there's a lot of people who doesn't know about this information. I thought it's ubiquitous. Everybody knows about it. And then every time I run into somebody, I never heard of it. Thank you for letting me know. I have no idea. This has been done, used by wealthy people years after years after years. And
so our mission is to teach people how to think like a businessman, use your brains, and take this opportunity, this once in a lifetime opportunity when people are worried about COVID, and acquire these companies that can make you rich and use the same method that Bill Gates did. Remember, we were talking about the fact that Bill Gates, he only owned 1.5%. His stock was worth $5 million. How could he have 80 billion? And it was because he had these rights, these long-term options that he gave himself, just like the ones that he gave his employees. Nothing like the ones that these kids are trading on and trying to guess what's going to happen in a month. Bill Gates is holding that. He's still the richest guy in the world, only now he is almost up to $1 trillion because of those rights to own Microsoft. You can learn how to do this too. We're on a mission to teach you how to do it. And Alicia is specializing in teaching it to women. So that's all the time we've got for today, right? This is now it's your turn. And Alicia is saying that to the women who she's particularly interested in spending time with. Now it's your turn.
This has been Now It's Your Turn with the Money Man, Dan Frischberg. If today's program piqued your interest, there's a video link and QR code on this page for a free workshop that'll teach you a lot more. Or you can find it on Dan's website. Just look for themoneyman.com/golden rule investing. That's themoneyman.com/golden rule investing. Now, if you're only hearing the audio, everybody agrees it's much more exciting and easier to follow on video. There's nothing to it. Just go to YouTube and type in the Money Man Report. You'll see that QR code and the link right there for that free workshop. And by the way, if you subscribe, you'll be personally notified every time we produce a new video. So we'll see you next time. If you missed anything, all this info resides in one place, where Dan Frischberg lives. The address is themoneyman.com. It's all one word, themoneyman.com.